I'm Ken Tate. I'm the Director of External Relations for the Department of Computer Science. It's my honor to welcome each of you to the LabCorp, the now LabCorp sponsored Leadership in Technology Speaker Series. Couple of announcements. I mentioned already that we're videotaping this. We're streaming it, but we're also capturing it live. So if you know someone who wanted to be here but maybe couldn't, it will be available probably within the next week on our YouTube channel. And again, if you need a form or something signed afterwards, if you're not a computer science student and you don't know what I'm talking about when I say swipe, I will be around at the end of the talk to sign off on any forms that you may have. This series was created actually 13 years ago and sponsored by Fidelity Investments for those first 13 years. We're so happy now to have LabCorp pick up the sponsorship now. They committed for the next 3 years, which just allows us to bring in extremely high quality speakers that can share about their experience. And I remember my days when I was in college here. I can't remember a lot of the faculty members in the classes that I took, but oddly enough, I remember a lot of these special talks that I went to. People say things that really register with you and make a difference in your life, and I hope that's the case for you tonight. I am not going to make the official introduction, though. I'm going to turn that over to our department head, Dr. Greg Rothermel, who will introduce our speaker for tonight. So, Greg?
Thank you, Ken. Thank you all for coming tonight, and to those who are viewing us on streaming. I want to start by thanking LabCorp for their support and the multi-year sponsorship of this series. Tonight we're honored to welcome as our guest speaker Dr. Mona Lisa Pinkney. This is homecoming week, and Dr. Pinkney has literally come back home for this talk, as she has a bachelor's degree from NC State. She also has a master's degree from Virginia Tech, an MBA from Loyola University, and a doctorate from the University of Maryland, if that's not enough degrees. Dr. Pinkney is a seasoned executive with over 25 years of professional experience in the cybersecurity field. Working internationally in Fortune 500 companies, she currently serves as the Senior Director of Governance, Risk, Compliance, Engagement, and GEOS at Nike Global Technology. Bridging technology and diversity, Dr. Pinkney is a diversity and inclusion advocate who provides mentorship and sponsorship to the underrepresented population interested in pursuing a career in technology. She's a frequent keynote speaker and has been named one of the top 30 most admired minority professionals in cybersecurity. In an effort to give back to the community in which she was raised, Dr. Pinkney provides a 4-year college scholarship to students graduating from her hometown high school. Dr. Pinkney has also created an endowment fund in the College of Engineering here at NC State. Dr. Pinkney is a founding member of Black Women in STEM 2.0, and she serves on a number of advisory boards. One of the things she strongly believes is that to whom much is given, much is expected. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our very special speaker tonight, Dr. Mona Lisa Pinkney.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone in the room and those out in cyberspace. Let's see if we can get this video to work. So I work at Nike. We're headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon. And one of the things that we do for every major meeting is we kick them off with a video. So I am going to actually bookend. I'm going to kick us off with a video, and I'm going to end with a video. And these videos are going to show you what my group is involved in when it comes to technology and cybersecurity. Okay?
This company started with an idea. The idea is to serve athletes. It was simple and true then, and you can absolutely draw a straight line from that original idea through this building and into the future.
From the very get-go, we wanted a beacon of sports performance from a Nike point of view.
It is a modern-day interpretation of Bill Bowerman's lab.
It's imagination, it's curiosity, it's being fearless. But what inspires us to do that is the athlete.
When you walk into this main channel, this huge open volume of space, you literally hear machines and tinkering and hammers going on. But then you look up and you notice there's a track up there as well. So instantly, you know what's going on in this building when you walk in. So it kind of puts everybody in a mindset like, all right, we're about to break some boundaries here and build some new stuff and test it.
We can have an athlete move full speed, full motion. They can shoot a basketball. They can run full speed down a 100-meter track. We can fatigue them around a 200-meter fatigue track. And they can do their sport and perform it as they would on the stage around the world. It's the world's largest motion capture installation.
When you come into the space, you feel it for real. I loved the idea that this team was also willing to innovate in spaces that they had never explored before. Athlete problems that they had never thought about, considered, or been faced with. And they just dove into it, iterating and trying things. And here's this prototype, let's try this sole.
To be a great scientist, you have to be insatiably curious, both with things you don't know, but also just challenging the status quo. The day we get complacent with our knowledge is the day we fail.
Our mission is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And no matter your sport, ability, or intensity, what we do here in the LeBron James Innovation Center fulfills that mission and directly serves you, the athlete.
You see that we're not just a sneaker company. Did anybody get that? Okay. So tell it just high level about me, and we did the introduction earlier, so I'm not going to cover too much more. But what I want to show is I have what I call my 5 Bs, and I'll talk about those. And that is really what I felt I needed to come together to think about, how can I survive? And not just survive, but how can I thrive in a male-dominated field as a woman and a woman of color? And so we'll talk about that, but a part of that is being as balanced as you can be. I think balance, the word itself is overused, so as balanced as you can be. But I try to have fun facts when I talk to people and say it's not all about work. There are other things that we need to take into consideration. And so that's why I put together this slide and to talk about fun facts. And one is, I have visited all 50 states in the United States of America, and that was a goal that I had. So you'll see me talking about be relentless. It's like figure out what you want to do and don't stop until you do it. I visited 6 of the 7 continents. I have 1 left. COVID has messed up my schedule, but I'm determined I'll get there. Anybody want to guess which one I haven't visited? No. Africa. I actually went on a trip to Antarctica via NC State. Yeah. And they talked about some of the other things I already volunteer in. I am really passionate about diversity from all areas, but certainly diversity when it comes to underrepresented groups. And I want to do everything I can for the rest of the time I'm on this earth to try to increase representation in technology and certainly in cybersecurity. And so I'll go and tell you why I added that LeBron video. Because I want you to be able to see that Nike isn't just a sneaker company. We use technology to help the athlete. And in the words of our co-founder, Bill Bowerman, if you have a body, you are an athlete. So believe it or not, I actually run marathons and half marathons. And a part of that is I feel like as long as I can walk, I should be able to run. And so I do that to try to keep in shape, but also it's a spiritual process for me as well. And so if you have a body, you are an athlete. Remember that. Okay, I'm gonna go to my 5 Bs. The first one is what I started talking about anyway, be relentless. You know, figure out what you want to do in life. And I know a lot of you are in, undergrads and some graduate students on the on the call in Zoom, you're still figuring out what you want to do. And what's interesting to me is like where you start is not always where you finish, but sometimes life becomes a full circle. When I started at NC State, and I debated if I was going to say this because I met with the women in science and engineering yesterday and had lunch, and I told them how long it had been, like when I was a freshman at NC State, and they were like, oh my God. And then they started asking me, well, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, so let me put that out there now. I am not ready for retirement. But I actually started my freshman year at NC State and the College of Engineering as an industrial engineering major in the year 1981. So this year makes 40 years since I first stepped foot on this campus. And it has been an interesting career. I'll talk about where I am now in my journey. So I'm going to take you along that journey. And it hasn't been a direct path or a straight line. You know, things change in your personal life and certainly in your professional life. But what I say is be relentless. Think about what you want to do and figure out how to do it. And one of the people that I really like to talk about is LeBron James. He knew, he's one of my favorite athletes, by the way. He knew that he wanted to win a championship. He started out in his home, in his home state, couldn't win one. So he decided he had to take his talents to Miami, and he won 2. But he still had that earning, he still wanted to come back and bring a championship to his hometown. And that's what he did. So he was relentless. It wasn't a straight path. He didn't win it first in Cleveland. He went to Miami. He came back to Cleveland. And so that's why I say be relentless. Think about what you want to do and follow through. Okay? The next one that I have is be fearless. So my journey, I left North Carolina. I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, met my husband, got married, and I thought really that I was just going to be there for 2 years. And my soror and college roommate is here in the room with me. And she may not remember this, but she was concerned, I would say, about me moving to the D.C. area, because she's like, it's so fast-paced. Is that something that you really wanted to do? And I was determined that I wanted to at least give it a try. And I was going to do it, really, 2 years. I'm going to go, I'm going to get work experience, I'm going to move back to North Carolina. From a small town, less than an hour east of here. Got there, and like I said, met my husband, got married, rest is history. But every company that I worked for up until the last few years either no longer exists or no longer exists under the name that it had when I worked for them. And so we went through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And most of them were acquisitions. But I always, when everything was done, I was always left standing, right? I always had a job. And so, but what I started thinking about is how do I make myself marketable? How do I put myself in a position where when they're getting rid of everybody else, and making those decisions, that I'm still going to have a job, right? And so I went back to school. I was working at MCI. MCI no longer exists today. I was working at MCI. MCI decided they were going to move their whole, at that time we were called systems engineering. They were going to move their whole systems engineering group to Colorado Springs. I did not want to move to Colorado Springs. My family was here. I just couldn't see myself being that far away. So I decided to go back and get my first master's degree. Virginia Tech had set up, and I know they're now in the ACC, but they had set up a campus in Northern Virginia, so I was able to go there and finish. I started working for a consulting company, and that consulting company had a contract with what was called the Resolution Trust Corporation. Some people on the call may remember the RTC. But we had this huge savings and loan scandal the government created to clean that up. Well, I worked there and at FDIC, which still exists. So the RTC was only supposed to be in existence for a short period of time. And I went there to do what? To set up their first cybersecurity training and awareness program. So I did that at FDIC, NRTC, RTC went away, and a lot of the employees got absorbed by FDIC. Right? So it was like, how do you be fearless? How do you ask questions? How do you make sure that you understand what is happening around you? And please, please, please don't think that you have to know everything. Because some people feel like if I ask questions, people will know that I don't know something. It's okay to ask questions. And that's why I talk about being fearless. And so when all of that happened, I worked there for a few years, and then the guy I was reporting to got a job with USF&G. And that's my next B, be connected. He went to USF&G, which no longer exists, but it was one of the biggest and the oldest insurance companies in the US at that time. And they got absorbed by the St. Paul companies. But when he left, he asked me to go with him and set up some of the same programs that I have him set up at the FDIC. And one of them, believe it or not, was to look at the internet and see whether or not it would be safe to do business over the internet. I know for this group, that's unbelievable. You can't believe that actually happened. That it was just during that time, the internet really didn't exist, and people were trying to figure out how to use it from a business perspective, certainly from a personal perspective. So be connected to your profession. So I went with him, was able to do that, and while I was there. So let me back up just a second. So when I got there, I talked to my old manager at MCI who moved with the company to Colorado Springs. We kept in contact. And I told him, they'll probably be calling you for a reference. No problem. So then he told me, he said, well, this guy, I'll call him Jim. He said, you remember Jim so-and-so? I said, oh yeah, because he was one of those executives, so you knew the name. He said, he is actually at USF&G. He just started there a week or so ago. He said, he gave me the referral. I got the job. He said, go over there and introduce yourself. And I was like, he's not going to remember me. He said, go and introduce yourself. So I did. So even though my old manager was bringing me with him, you still have to go through their background checks and referrals and everything. So I went to Jim's office, and I said, hi, Jim, I'm so-and-so. I used to work in system, because it was systems engineering, but system security was our group. I said, I worked in systems security under so-and-so. He said, oh yeah, I remember you. Right? You never know who's looking at you, right? And he said, I remember you. So we started talking. That first year, I was under a different VP. Our group got reorganized and we moved under him. So we started giving out laptops, and again, dating myself. And the laptops were walking out of the building because people didn't know how to use them. So they had the laptops. When people got ready to go home, what do you think they did? They left them on their desks. So they were walking out of the building. And so they said, okay, we want you to lead a laptop security program because we need to teach people how to use the equipment. And they were certainly interested in the equipment itself, but it was more about the data and the data that was walking out of the door. That was concerned because we weren't encrypting things at that time. And so I started doing that, and then they said, met with Jim and his boss, who was the CIO, and they said, well, you know what you do here at headquarters, we want to ensure that we can proliferate that out in the fields. And so we want you to go to all of the regional offices and have a focus group and meet with the people and see what we can do, because they were really concerned about the culture, right, and changing that. And so I started this road show. And I was in Denver, because that was one of our regional office, and the HR person called me. And she said, Jim asked me to talk to you. And I was like, okay. It was getting kind of, he's been reading I was giving out reports every week to my leader, who was passing them up to Jim. She said, Jim wants to create a job for you. The job doesn't exist today, but he thinks you're the best person for it. Jim and I had talked. He knew a little bit about my background, And so I talked to her, and I said, okay, I'm a little nervous. And I said, well, what I need to understand is what is Jim going to do to ensure that I'm successful? Because I said to her, and I truly believe it, I said, I will do everything I can to be successful. But me doing everything that I can doesn't always mean that it's going to translate into me being successful. So I said, what is Jim going to do to help me be successful? She said, I'll talk to him. So Jim came back, I said, and I started doing some research, like, if I do this, what do I need to know, and so forth. And so I had this whole list. When I got back to the office, we sat down, we went through it, and everything I told him I wanted to do, he said, okay. And then he said, and I want you to also go to Carnegie Mellon, right, and take some classes there. So I went there and took all these classes, and was successful. So then I mentioned that USF&G, they said merge. It was an acquisition. They got acquired by the St. Paul companies. So then the first day that they inked the deal, Jim, his boss, they were all gone. And that's a lot of times what happens when there's an acquisition. The senior leaders leave because the company doing the acquiring, they stay and take over. So we have what we call a stay pay. Stay for 1 year through the merger, and they will pay you half of your bonus, depending on where you were, 30, 40, 50% of your earned income for that year. So I stayed, collected the money, and I was telling someone, and we did some renovation in our house, got our basement finished, so that was wonderful. My husband was happy. And then I talked to Jim, who was, by then, he had gone to what at that time was Ameritrade. Today is TD Ameritrade. And I ended up going to Ameritrade, working for the same person. That's why I say stay connected. Fast forward, I am at Nike today because of that relationship with Jim. I worked with Jim at multiple companies, and the person that I worked with out of the UK reported to Jim. He went to Nike to be their CIO. And at that point, they were building up their cybersecurity program. They had about 15, 20 people. And I went there to help build out the cybersecurity program. And like I said, when I started, it was around 15 to 20 people. Now we have over 300 people. Right? But it was that relationship, so staying connected. I mentioned earlier about my soror. It's been 39 years, because I'm a year ahead of her. It's been 39 years. And it's like there's some people that are in your life for a season, meaning they're only supposed to be in your life for a short period of time. There's some people who are meant to be in your life for the entire time that you're here. And so I'm happy that she's here with me tonight, and her husband. Thank you. And so be connected to your profession. Also, think about mentoring. Jim was the first person that said that he was my mentor. I had no idea what that meant. He told someone, and they said it to me, and I said, well, if he says he's my mentor, then he is. Again, I didn't even know what it meant. But not only was he my mentor, he was also my sponsor. Because remember, he created a job for me. He created opportunities for me in other companies. And that has been wonderful for me. So I try to give back. And I try to mentor other people. One of my colleagues who was here, she is really big on mentoring. I mean, she's like a super mentor. I don't know how she does it, but she has numerous mentors. I have a few in comparison, but I try to give back. So I say stay connected to your profession. Stay connected to your family. When it's all said and done, that's who you rely on. And so I talked about earlier trying to have some form of balance. So my motto is, and certainly at Nike we say it all the time, work hard, play harder. So before the pandemic, my husband and I used to travel with another couple. We would go to the NBA All-Star. I love sports, specifically basketball and football. And that was the highlight. While going there, I got to meet 2 different people from 2 of our championship teams here at NC State. I got to meet Tommy Burleson, and I got to meet, Thurl Bailey. Right? And that connection. Thurl was here when I was here, but he was older, so didn't really talk to him, but I knew who he was. Tommy was much older, I would say, and I just knew about that team, right, because I was into sports. So I got to do that, and I'm just going to confess, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. So my husband and I also season ticket holders. So we try to go to a few games a year, but that's how I try to balance things out, and we do family trips and all that. Of course, we haven't been able to do many of those lately, but hope to pick that up. But stay connected to your profession, stay connected to your family, and stay connected to your community. You know, they shared earlier about some of the things that I try to do to stay connected to my community. My community being NC State, this is my first school, right? So I stay connected through the endowment. And there's so much more I wish I could do, but I'm doing as much as I can at this particular time. And I try to stay connected to my family or my community back in my hometown. Okay. My next B, and this is like my stories on survival, is be global. How many people, is there anyone in here who's not from the United States? There you go. So I think there's about 7 or 8. So one thing I say is, you know, we are no longer competing with people from our hometown, people from our home state, or even from the United States. We are competing with people from all over the world. And I mentioned that I worked at Barclays, was headquartered out of the UK, spent a lot of time in Western Europe. And the one thing that I found in common as I'm talking to everyone in the offices is that they had to learn at least one foreign language. It was a requirement, like first grade. And in some countries, like in Portugal, it was recommended that they learn 3. So could you imagine? So what I tell people is, you know, especially if you have children or have children in your life, convince them to learn a second language, and learn 2. But think about being global. Think about exploring the world. I love diversity in all areas. I like to try different foods. I like to talk to different people and ask a lot. And I ask a lot of questions in general. But traveling around the world, that's one of the things I like to do, just to talk to someone. Ask them questions. If I'm at a hotel and I'm checking in, I'll start asking the person checking me in, where are you from? What do you do? You know, is this your native land? Right? Go to a restaurant. Start asking some of the same questions. Get to know other people. And because one of the things I say all the time is, if we were all the same, it would be a boring world. So we need to embrace our differences and get to know each other and get to talk to each other. Because I think that's the other thing. People don't talk to each other. Because I find that when you talk to people, you end up finding out that you know more about each other. You have more similarities than differences. And so be global. And my last one is be authentic. Be authentic. And I know that has been difficult. And when I was talking to the students yesterday, and they were asking me questions, and they were like, well, you know, have you ever had a difficult time? And I'm like, couldn't hold back the laughter, right? It's like difficult time. That's all the time, every day. But what you have to do is think about it. And she was asking from a standpoint because I'm a woman or because I'm a woman of color. And she was asking that. And she said, how do you maintain, you know, your composure? And I said, you know, it took a while. I'm better than I was last year. And I'm hoping that I'll be better than I am today. I meditate every day, multiple times a day, right? Because I realize that what you say can get you in a lot of trouble. And if you do that without thinking, right? You do it because I got to get back at this person. It can get you in trouble when you look at your profession. Because people, the world is so small, and you end up running into people and you don't realize it. We were in Switzerland, and we were in the hotel lobby, and I was asking about, I think it was raining, we didn't have umbrella, and I was at the front desk and I could hear my husband's voice kind of carry, and I'm hearing him talking. And I'm like, who in the world is he talking to? Well, a guy they had met on the plane on one of the trips when he was joining me in London, who happened to be from Northern Virginia, and we were living in Maryland. And they met on the plane. That guy just happened to be in Switzerland at that same hotel. So it's like you just never know, right, who you're going to run into, and thinking about being who you are and being your authentic self by talking to people and telling them, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and you can accept me. And the person accepted him and they were told they couldn't be even more different than night and day, right? They were so different, but the ability to be your authentic self. And you know, people on the call, you may not know, I have what they call sister-in-laws, which is natural hair. I had thought about it for a long time. And in my picture, because I just started this during the pandemic, and I always had to straighten my hair because I talked to some people and they told me not to do natural hair. And I decided that this is something I want to do, and I'm either accepted or I'm not accepted. So I decided to go for it. And it has not, from what I can see, it's not held me back, because I'm still in my job. And actually, one of the things that we talk about, and I have a QR code up soon, is I am in the process of relocating from Oregon to Atlanta. We're going to be opening up a global technology presence in Atlanta. I will be the senior site leader for that site. Right? And all this happened while I'm walking around with natural hair. So it's be authentic. And what I tell people, it's not just about your appearance, it's also about your beliefs. What you believe. Don't let people or circumstances change who you are. You're going to be confronted with a lot of different things happening in the work environment. So think about that and make sure that you're grounded and you do not let those circumstances or situations change who you are. And so what I'll do is I just want to say, those are my 5 B's. Be relentless. Think about what you want to do. Don't stop until you get there. Be fearless. Ask questions. Be curious. One of my colleagues talks about intellectual curiosity, which is something that we look for when we're interviewing people. So be curious. Ask questions. Certainly when you go start interviewing, always have questions that you can ask someone. Be connected to your family, be connected to your community, be connected to your profession. Give back. I was always told, to whom much is given, much is expected. Be global. Think about the world outside of NC State, outside of North Carolina, outside of the USA. Be global. Learn another language. It is important, I'm telling you. I see so many job descriptions where they're asking, do you know this language, do you know that language? Learn another language. And certainly be authentic. Don't let circumstances or other people try to change who you are or try to dictate you, dictate what you should and should not do. And one of the things that as a leader I try to do is I never ask, I want to make sure I say this, I never ask anyone on my team to do anything that I would not do. So if we have a release that's going out and people are going to have to stay late, I'm going to stay late. If I have to be there early, I'm going to get up early. So as you think about ascending into the workforce, keep those things in mind. Okay? And so I said I started at the beginning with LeBron, the building, and talking about everything that was there. And one thing I'll share real quick is I have information risk management under my umbrella, and we perform risk assessments. For that building, we had over 100 vendors. So we perform risk assessments on the systems within the network within Nike, but also any vendor that Nike is looking to go into a contract relationship with. So we had over 100. So we performed over 100 vendor risk assessments. That's just one area of what my team is responsible for. We also teach developers how to think like hackers so that they can hopefully build more secure products for Nike. And we do that through this program, which is called Insidious. So I'll give you a quick clip of what we share.
Hey,
So I like my job because I get to work with brilliant minds. We get to do things that we feel will change the world. We get to work with the product teams, the innovation teams, to build products that are going to help the athlete, and as I said earlier, if you have a body, you're an athlete, perform better. I can still run at my age, and I will say I can run faster than a lot of the young people in my family who are half my age and further. And I attribute that to, buying some of the products, certainly the sneakers, and the fabric. When you think about some of the fabrics that we have, and I know we have a lot of people from the College of Textiles working at Nike as well. But I wanted to show you just, and this as big as we can get, but it's a mind map, and it kind of tells you all the different areas of cybersecurity that you can go into. And this is not all inclusive. This is what we could get on this slide. My colleague sent this to me, and I want to share. And that's why I said I booked in the videos. You see at the beginning, that was what my team worked on to get that building up and running, performing the risk assessments, working with the teams that were responsible from a network and operations perspective, ensuring that everything was secure. You can imagine all of the IoT that goes on within that building. You have to make sure everything's secure. That's one aspect. The other one is the last video when we work with developers to teach them to think like hackers so that we can build more, hopefully more secure products, right? And so there's just a variety of things that you can do in cybersecurity. So I hope that some of you will consider coming to work for Nike. We have summer internship programs for undergraduates and graduates, and we also are hiring actively right now. And so if you're interested, you can scan this QR code and upload your resume. And so I'll leave that up there for a few minutes, and then I'll see if we have any questions. I'm not in the way, am I? Got away? Okay.
Typically at this time, we would ask you to wait until we pass around the mic. But because this mic doesn't work in the room, it only works. We're just going to ask if you have a question, you raise your hand, say it as loudly as you can. Dr. Pinkney, if you would repeat the question, that way it will be captured and also broadcast in the room. Will that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you have a question, raise your hand.
Okay.
So you talked about a lot of the ways that you can advocate for yourself or push yourself forward. Do you have any ways that you just advocating for other people as well? Because like you talked about, you're in a position where you're able to support others. But are there any day-to-day ways that you think you can do that?
Okay. So the question was about advocating for other people. And she just talked about, just repeated some of the stuff that I did. So I talked about ways to advocate for myself and ways to advocate for others. And is there something you can do on a day-to-day basis? So for me, personally, one of the things that I can do is when I'm in meetings and I hear them talking about some of my colleagues, right? And I know they want to do certain things or they want to develop in a certain area, then the way I can advocate for them is to share that information, right, with the people that have the ability to give them those opportunities. Another thing is, and I had a list of things on the slide in regards to volunteer work. So we have a very small, and this is one of the reasons I'm really passionate about it, we have a very small group of, when it comes to representation of blacks and people and women, people of color and women in technology, period. But certainly in cybersecurity, when you slice it, it gets smaller. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do is advocate for what I would say the voiceless, those people who feel like they don't have a voice. They want to move into other areas, they want to grow, they want to develop, they want to be promoted. And so the way I do that is to talk about it on a regular basis. And so that's how I feel like I can advocate and give the voice to the voiceless. And we started what we call the Black Employees in Technology. 2 of my colleagues, it was 3 of us at my level, 3 of us that identify as black at my level across an organization of 10,000 people. And we got together and we were like, this has to change. We have to advocate to bring more people of color and women. And we were focusing on people who look like us. And so that was our way of being an advocate. And so when people start talking about opportunities, like we're going to start this new group, we're looking for people at this level, or we want to promote people, then we've been trying to use that venue to be able to promote and advocate for others. Now we meet with the CDIO, our Chief Digital and Information Officer, on a monthly basis. So that is our opportunity to advocate. We formed the network, and now it's under what we call the bigger umbrella of what we call Black Employees Network. And so we meet and we talk about how do we help change the paradigm. And so that's one part, Black employees in technology. I also want to increase women. So what I decided to do, and working with my colleague who is here, there's an organization called Women in Cybersecurity, WISIS. And so we did not have in Oregon, people would think of it as a chapter, but we did not, they call it affiliate. We did not have an affiliate in the state of Oregon. So I worked with her, worked with the national office, and started a Women in Cybersecurity Oregon affiliate, where I serve as the president. And that is advocating for other women. And I've been trying to pull in people who don't actually have a background necessarily in cybersecurity or in technology, but talking to them about transferring those skills. And so that's another way to advocate, because you're trying to get out there, find people, find opportunities for them. And certainly through mentorship, trying to put yourself out there and do that. My colleague who's in the room, she has a group that meets every month. They started out right around the pandemic, meeting every week. And the last time, I think there were people from over 10 different countries on that call. And you're talking about, so you're trying to give information to people and then telling them, hey, come to me and I will help you. I will advocate for you. So just small ways, and I think one of the things that people think is that it always has to be like this big, bang thing. Like it has to be something big. It can just be small, incremental steps to be able to help people. But first and foremost, being able to speak on behalf of people who wouldn't necessarily be in a room where people would know who they are or know their names. I hope that helps. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? And I know we have some people on the call. Okay.
Do I need to take up the microphone?
No, you just said it and I'll repeat it. Yeah.
I will be taking some security-related courses next semester. I'm just interested to know what kind of security challenges that, say, Nike will be facing today.
Oh, wow. Well, you name it, we're facing it almost like every other company. And I don't have the statistics in my head, but you probably can go out there and Google it. I know Verizon, they usually give out a report. But the number of phishing attacks has increased significantly since the pandemic. Everybody know what a phishing attack is. So they have, but then it's on Uber. So now they do it not just, sending you an email and then you say, oh, well, wait a minute, and ask you to click on the link. Now they're sending you a text message, because guess who they're after? Your generation, because you use the phone your phone is your computer a lot of the times, right? So they start sending text messages and tell you to click on this link, and then they disguise it, they'll find out something about you and they'll say, oh, hi, Bob. Have this perfect thing for you. And so you think, oh, they know who I am, they say my name, but they're able to do spear phishing where they can figure out who you are and look up your information. And I say, don't click on it. So those are things you think about, phishing, spear phishing. But one of the things really in vulnerability management, pen testing is another good area to think about. Forensics. I was telling someone that if forensics was a degree program when I was getting out of high school, I probably would have gone into that, because I like being able to figure out things, right, and follow like the trail. I used to read Nancy Drew and try to figure out what was going to happen or who was the person before I got to the end. The other thing is really big is threat intel, threat intelligence. Understanding what's going on, because you look at the way we interact with other countries, and what is happening. Won't go into a lot of the other stuff because I'm definitely not getting political, but when you just look at like some of the election things and what's happening, and they talk about some of the bad actors. When you look at some of the ransoms, so ransomware, right, where people, Colonial Pipeline, I saw where someone in Nightdale, so I was going to ask how many people here were impacted, right, when they said you couldn't get gas, and there was like this long line all over the East Coast, and then they had a video, and someone sent it to me, and they said, somebody from your home state is fighting over gas, right? And it was right, and I said, oh my God, it was right in Nightdale, right up the street. So you think about that. It's about those things you can think about. How can you go into a field where you can protect? And I will tell you, things continue to evolve. One of the things I let people know is like when I started my career, there was no defined career path for cybersecurity. It just did not exist. And the name has changed. It was computer security, information security, system security, now cybersecurity. It could be something else in another year or two. And that's why I say you have to be relentless and figure out what you want to do and just be prepared to change as the world around you is changing. So there'll be something else new that you can do, but I would say think about what you like. Like what interests you? What are you passionate about? Do you like analytics? Do you like talking to people, right? So you may say, well, if you like to analyze stuff and you like talking to people, maybe being a help desk support person, right? But if you like trying to be like a spy and think about threat intel and talking to people in that arena, that may be the area for you. You just really need to think about what you want to do. And this is why I say, go back to you determine what you want to do. And if you're not quite sure, but you see that other people are doing something that may be a combination, then reach out. I mentioned the internet did not exist when I started my career. Now you can go and Google people. You can see what people do and say, oh, I like what they're doing, or I'm interested in find out more about what they're doing, and reach out to them. Because 9 times out of 10 when you do, they're going to talk to you because people love to talk about. People are passionate about what they do. They love to talk about it. And so the one thing I tell people is like, if you don't ask, the answer is what? 100% no. If you ask, there's a 50-50 chance that the person is going to say yes. So ask. This goes back to ask questions, be inquisitive. But think about what really, makes you feel good. Like, what do you want to do?
I guess for me, I look at it more in like I want to write software that I would do my due diligence so that if something gets like exposed or something, it's not due to my gross negligence, and that's my perspective on it.
So I would say, think about that, because you can do that. And one of the things, and this is usually not the case, and I would just say it's difficult for us to get people to document everything that they do. I'm a process person. So it's like I want to document everything, and then I want to go back and see how we can do better with it. And so when you say you want to make sure it's not your fault, there are guidelines that you can use when you think about industry standards and guidelines, and you can follow those. And sometimes you can follow them and there's still going to be an issue. So that's the part. You have to think about sometimes you are going to fail, and it's okay. Learn from it and go and do better the next time.
Yep, thank you very much.
No, thank you. Anyone else on the phone? Okay. I think we're good. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Yeah, turn it over to Ken. Oh, and do have some swag for you, so stop by and pick up to kind of help protect you. You got a webcam cover for your laptop and your iPad, and have pot sockets that you can put on the back of your phones, and certainly a few little bracelets that you can wear, and then pocket holders that you can put on your phone to put your credit card, ID card on. So please help yourself.
So
you can grab one for your friends.
Before you leave.
Yeah, before you leave. I'm just saying it's here.
Yeah,
Ken is going to close us out.
Dr. Pinkney's going to be around for a few minutes, so
Yes.
if anybody had a question you didn't want to speak up, certainly come down and talk to her. I want to, two things. One is, Dr. Pinkney, I also want to give you something, a little token of our appreciation. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking to us tonight. Thank you very much. One last thing. It's been a crazy year, right? not only COVID, but I mean, a year ago, you know, there was all this social unrest, and from the George Floyd incident really hit home for us. Dr. Rothmel, I mean, he immediately had a faculty and staff call, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it was like, what are we going to do? We have to be a part of the solution. We have to look at ourselves as a department. We have to question everything about who we are, what we're doing, how we're doing it, are we doing it well, from the perspective of diversity. Let me take this off. From the perspective of diversity, what are we doing to bring more people of color into this discipline? More women and more people of color. And for the last year, there have been, I'm not sure how many different committees, multiple committees who have been working on these topics. So I'm here to make an announcement tonight that a year's worth of work finally becoming something tangible, coming to fruition. Tonight we are announcing that the department is forming a Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, and it will begin officially next semester. But we're launching I'll call it an information session for students who are interested in being a part of this. We'll also have faculty who will be a part of this. We'll have student organizations that exist today that can provide leadership that will be a part of this council to provide us some guidance on what we can do as a department to be more accepting and more proactive in our seeking out of those who don't have voices. You said it so well. And what we can do to make them successful as a part of our department. So this council will be a small group of students, faculty, and staff working to advance equity and inclusion for black students and students of color more broadly in the department. They will have departmental support. We have corporate support, a great deal of corporate support to go out and do things. Much funding to pursue this goal. You, the students of computer science, and students, if you're in another discipline, you also are welcome and invited to an interest meeting on Thursday, November the 11th, 6:30 to 7:30 in this room, also on a Thursday night. At the meeting, we will invite students to apply to join the council in a leadership role and to seek student input on the council's structure. And if I could, hopefully this works. There's a chart here with some information. So if this appeals to you, if you would like to be a part of the solution that we've been working on for the last year, we invite you to come to that meeting and learn more. With that said, that is the conclusion of our talk tonight. I invite you to come back November 18th. We'll have Drew Banks. He's also an alum of the department. He's a very successful and now retired Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He's going to tell us about how many times he's failed, right? So I think you mentioned this. Failure's not a bad thing. Failure's a good thing. You learn from failure, and he's failed, but he's also succeeded many times. So if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, come back November 18th. We're not having a reception, if you remember those from a year or so ago, just because of COVID. We'll probably launch those again next year. But if you need something signed, I'll be here. Otherwise, Dr. Pinkney will be here for questions. Otherwise, we'll see you in November. Thank you very much.